Welcome back, everybody. I'm Sally Diane, the Queen of Ooga Booga, and the Queen welcomes you. Today we're doing palm readings, and my producer told me that he has a special surprise for me. What did you have in mind for me?
Celebrity palm reading.
That sounds like fun. I'll tell you what, we'll do it when we're done reading everybody else's palm.
Of course, make them wait.
Of course. And I'm actually going to make you wait just a little bit longer for the palm readings because I want to tell you a little bit about our show on Sunday night. It's going to be Getting Acquainted with Your Tarot Deck. And this is aimed at the beginners, and all of you could learn something from this. But I want to give you a few simple steps to get acquainted with your tarot deck in a much simpler fashion than the little white book that comes with the cards. So tune in Sunday night at 7 o'clock for episode 1 on the tarot, Getting Acquainted with Your Cards. And now, without further delay, let's get started on the palm readings. Our first reading is Jenna, and today is Jenna's birthday. Happy birthday, Jenna. Okay, happy birthday, Gemini. You were born in 1999, which makes you an Earth rabbit, which isn't a bad thing. You're earthy, so that means you're well grounded at times. And a rabbit is rabbit's a much bolder creature than people realize, and people are always underestimating rabbits. I think people are always underestimating you as well. When I look at your hand, you have a very emotional, receptive hand. You have a well-built-up mound of Luna, which tells me that you do have some really good intuitive energies, and I hope you focus on those. Also, you have a well-built-up mound of Venus, and I like to see that because it means that you're very good at receiving love. And anybody who is good at receiving love is also going to be good at giving love. And when I look at your heart line, that's what I see, although I do see a little bit of a fork toward the end of your heart line. I think that there's, you're not the only person who has family drama, and I really see family drama in your hands. So this is a situation where you kind of need to roll your eyes and realize that some people will never change, and you just have to distance yourself from them. But don't let them drain your love, don't let them drain your heart, and don't let them drain your emotions. I want to take a look at your childhood. And, I do see a good straight line in your childhood and good color. There was a lot of pleasure and enjoyment in your childhood. But when we look toward that point where you transition from childhood to adulthood, so we're looking at the period that you're just coming out of, I think that you had to take on adult responsibilities early, because the end of your childhood kind of has this double line to it, which tells me that you had your feet in two different worlds, where it was still in the child adolescent world, it was also in the adult world. So you had to take some responsibility for yourself early on. Now, I did see some writing ability here. And I don't think your head may be into it right now. But you think about things, and you think about them a lot. You tend to chew on things. And it just gives you a lot of fodder for writing. I think you should consider that as a hobby, maybe. You do have a nice long lifeline, and actually fairly straight. I mean, there's chaining and everything. You're not going to have a boring life. There's always going to be some little drama, some little ups and downs. But overall, if you're going to take the long view, you have a good road ahead of you. When I look into your senior years, and I know you're not concerned with this right now, but as far as the change of life stuff, as far as the transition into your senior years, you're going to be, when you get to, say, 50 or 60, that's when you're going to start the change of life. So you're going to be one of the later ones, which tells me that you're going to go into your senior years a very young-looking person. you have a potential to have a good balance between will and logic. And I want to get back to that extra long lifeline that I see. I think if you can just tie a bow in your plans instead of mulling them over for months and months and months and just jump into the doing, that you would find your life becomes a lot more balanced and you actually become more productive. Okay, see what I see in your fingers. Oh, you've got you have really, really, really good communication skills, and as long as you lead by example and don't try and be a boss, you're actually a very good leader. It's only when you're having to think about it that you're not. So keep in mind, just do the right thing, do what you know is right, and know that people are following you in that way. You have some underlying creative talents that I think are going to benefit you through life over and over again, because it just seems like your communication and creativity are really just latched into each other, almost like a Lego. You also are lucky in that even though I'm sure you have some bad habits, we all have some bad habits. You have a metabolism that wants to be healthy. So your metabolism will let you get away with a few bad habits. And no, I said a few, not a whole pile of them, okay? Final words, I think that you are an old soul. You have potential to reach down really deep inside of you. The word distraction comes through a lot. Don't let yourself be so distracted. It would probably help you to do a little bit of meditation, to make sure you start your days grounded. And it would also help you to carry around some grounding crystals, like some of the tourmalines. A hematite can be grounding. Also, I think a malachite would work really good for you as far as the grounding, because that balances out both the grounding and your healing ability, and you do have the hands of a healer. Okay, so on to the next. And our next palm reading is Marcie. And Marcie is a fire monkey, and born in 1956. And fire monkeys are daring, they're passionate, they tend to go where angels fear to tread. And there's a little bit of a luck to monkeys. They get away with it. Looking at your palm, the one thing I find really interesting about your palm is your headline. And you've given me both palms so I can see what you were born with, and I can see what you've done with it. And when I look at what you were born with the way you think things through, you're still focusing on a number of things at once, but not very well. You've actually learned to multitask within your brain, because when I look at the headline, it's telling me that you are able to focus on 3 things at once and do each one well. That's a rare talent. And when I look at your childhood, it seems like it runs on a long time. I think maybe that you were really closely associated with your even after you moved out of home, you were still a member of your family's household. If you know, I mean, you were still under your parents' roof. It just feels that way, that you had that. You know, we're part of the nuclear family when we're a child, and then we grow up and we leave home, and maybe you just left home late, but you either left home late or you stayed really close to home. You have a practically perfect heart line. I really like that. You're able to be trusting, but not let people hurt you. And you know the right time to just let them go. But you have one of the most clear heart lines I've seen in a long time. You know who you are, you know who you like. And I would imagine with that comes a very strong moral compass. You've got a lot of little lines here that talk about souls that you've helped in this life. Whether you're a counselor, a teacher, some kind of healer, you reach out and help people in a very meaningful way in this life, and I commend you for that. You are actually able to jump in with both feet and juggle pretty much well any situation, and with you, you're able to do it by the rules. No matter what you do, you're able to do it by the book and still do it fast and still do it your way without bending the rules. I'd bend the rules, but that's just me. You're another one with this really nice built up mound of Venus. And I like to see that because that's somebody who is a loving and a well-liked person. You have the leadership a bit. You're a bit of a reluctant leader. You don't want to take lead point, but that's somehow always where you end up. And I think that's because you have a way of saying the right thing, and that makes everybody say, okay, you're in charge. I know that's happened to you a few times in your life, I'm sure. You have a really strong fate line. And that means big things want to happen to you. And I couple that with your leadership ability. I would say just take that leadership as far as you can go. There's a bit of a humanitarian edge to you. I would almost suggest politics for you. And if not politics, do what I do. And I mean that to say that you do have really good intuitive abilities. And you would be great on this side of the table. Okay. So thank you very much for submitting your hand. And we will move on. Our next palm reading is Sharon. And Sharon was born in 1967, which makes her a fire goat. So she is very humanitarian, and the size of the fate line in her, and it goes right between communication and leadership, would go right along with the goat. The goat is very much a humanitarian, and it's one of those goats tend to be the kind of person where they do for everybody else and need very little for themselves. You have you have a lot of friends. You're a well-liked person. You are a very loving person. And it does feel like you have had your issues, your family issues. You have had issues with people who maybe have drug problems or alcohol problems or something along those lines. But instead of having to distance yourself, you have found a way to keep this person in your life. And that's just the kind of person you are. Even when people betray you, you still want, when somebody's in your heart, they're in your heart. And you're very protective of those who are in your heart. When I look at your childhood, there's there's a lot of activity in your childhood, a lot of ups and downs, but it feels like a good thing. It feels like you had challenges. It feels like you worked hard through your childhood. I wouldn't be the least bit surprised if you grew up on a farm, because you have that kind of, even when you look at you at say 10 or 12, you have that I had a productive day, that drive to be productive. That's part of you early on. You're extremely well aspected in the area of business, and your leadership and your communication abilities both tie right in with your creativity. So you are a good leader, you are a good communicator, but you do it in a way that nobody else does. when I look at the area of relationships, and I'm talking about romantic relationships, it feels almost bluish and glowing, which is a weird way to say it, but I really feel like there is a clear and close relationship around you that has been there for your entire life and will continue to be there. When you reach that point in your life, you've got this, right around 60, you've got this double line. And it's funny because when you reach the point where you want to retire and you're gearing up to retire, don't think you're going to go to the rocking chair. Something else will draw you in. But you have a long life, but you have a life of productivity and activity. I don't see any place here where you're going to just sit and play checkers or anything like that. It looks like you're always going to be accomplishing. You've got some really strong guides around you. You're very connected spiritually. I'm sure you meditate already, but if you don't, please do. And also, it feels like you have a good ability to reach out. So if you wanted to experiment with something like astral projection, you would probably do very well in that field. Okay, and now, celebrity palm reading. You have almost a reluctant leader here, because he has, like, the palm of his hands has that flat surface, that the shape that you would see on the Masters of the Universe kind of people. But when I look at the way he reaches out to the world, there's a certain clumsiness and uncomfortableness at the end. I think he's a private person who's being forced to lead a very public life. He has a creative side that he's protective of. He's a good communicator, and it wouldn't surprise me if this guy is a writer or something along those lines, because he has this clear line of thought, and he expresses himself very concisely, very point A to point B kind of person. He has a good long lifeline. It does go around all the way to under his thumb. There's a lot of spiritual energy around him when you get into the 70s and the 80s and the 90s. I think he might be long-lived, but I think that he might lose it a little toward the end. He might have some dementia or something starting as he gets older. His path in life is very clear. He's got to be a very well-educated man, because he thinks in a very organized manner, right from point A to point B. And I'd like to say he's a skilled negotiator, and he probably is, but he's not one that does horse trading. What you see is what you get with this guy. He's pretty straightforward. I don't think this is somebody who suffers fools very well. And for all the talent that I see in this person, I'm sure he's got intuitive ability in there somewhere, but it's not really showing through. It seems like this is somebody who wants to think things through logically, not intuitively. Okay, so where's our producer? It's Tom Hanks. That makes perfect sense, especially about the privacy and the shyness. Yeah, well done. Well done. Okay, thank you so much for tuning in. Remember to like and subscribe, and I need as many subscribers as I can get, so please share this, tell your friends about me, tune in Sunday night for getting to know your tarot deck, and send us your palms to the Queen of Ooga Booga at gmail.com. It helps me if I have a picture of your left palm and your right palm, including the thumbs and the fingers. Include your date of birth, and if you have a question you'd like me to answer, include that as well. I would like to apologize for anybody who sent me a palm that did not get a reading this week. We will have another palm reading next Thursday, so send in your palms, and whoever didn't get read this week will get read next week. Tune in Sunday night. Thank you very much.